Tragedy strikes as 107 persons die in Jigawa tanker explosion. 5 killed in latest plateau attack. Cholera outbreak in Niger State kills 16. Authorities on high alert. On the foreign scene, Sudan violence sparks refugee crisis as Chad faces growing strain from influx. Hello and welcome to News Hour on Trust TV. I am Muhammad Kudu Abubakar. Residents of Majia town in Taura local government area of Jigawa state were on Tuesday thrown into mourning after no fewer than 107 persons were reported killed following a petrol tanker explosion in the area. Reports say over 50 remain critically injured and are receiving treatment in hospitals across Taura and Hadeja. The report.
Across the length and breadth of Taura local government area, residents are in mourning as they come to terms with the deaths of their loved ones. At the time of filing these reports, a mass burial was ongoing for the victims whose remains were too shared to be identified, while grieving families sitting in silence are ruminating over their loss.
Today we woke up with disastrous information. A disaster that we did not even experience during the flood. It has occurred yesterday in the night, 11 o'clock. A tanker fell down. When it fell down, the oil there started spilling to the culvert. When it entered the culvert, it gushed into the town. Unknowingly, people started packing oil, thinking that it's an AUF. They didn't know, little did they know that it is a cause of death. So some of them that engaged in fetching this fuel were caught up with the fire. In the process of taking, there is a flash of light and the place caught fire. We right now that we recorded about the death of 107 people. Almost 50 are in the hospital receiving attention. What we do first is to evacuate those that are alive. They were evacuated to the hospitals. Those that have died, we are preparing them now for a mass burial.
There are growing concerns that the death toll may rise due to severe burns sustained by many of the injured. Meanwhile, Governor Umar Namadi has expressed sorrows and offered heartfelt condolences to the bereaved families and the entire communities affected by the unfortunate incidents. The governor, according to the statement by his media aide, has mobilized resources and provided essential support to the victims' families to help ameliorate their plights, while assuring the public that steps will be taken to prevent such tragedy in the future. The governor prayed to Allah to grant eternal rest to the departed souls and bring solace to their loved ones.
An early morning inferno from a falling tanker loaded with petroleum motor spirit, otherwise known as petrol, has destroyed many vehicles in the Ibafo area of Obafemi Owode local government area of Ogun State along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. Eyewitnesses disclosed that the driver of the tanker was suspected to have fallen asleep while driving, causing him to lose control and leading to the tanker's fall and eventual explosion. Confirming the incident in Abeokuta, the public relations officer of the Ogun State-owned Traffic Compliance and Enforcement Agency, Babatunde Akimbi, said no life was lost in the incident. The spilled content reportedly led to the fire that quickly spread to vehicles parked at a filling station. Several individuals were also said to have sustained varying degrees of injuries. The spilled petrol is reported to have passed through a drainage system that led to a community about 1 kilometer from the expressway. The impact of the fire was evident, with several buildings collapsing with shattered windows, damaged roofs, and cracked walls. Gunmen have killed 5 people in a fresh attack on some rural communities in Bokos local government area of Plateau State. This was confirmed in a statement on Tuesday by the chairman of Bokos Cultural Development Council, Farmason Fudang, and the Secretary Duwam Bosco. They said the attack occurred on Monday, October the 14th, decrying previous attacks that have led to the death of several persons in the past. The tragic incident occurred on the heels of a week marked by bloody attacks during which more than 10 members of the community were brutally murdered. The State Police Command is yet to speak on the incident. Trust TV's Ado Musa from Plateau State Capital sent us this update on the attack.
Up to this moment, security agencies have yet to comment on the incident. However, sources told Trust TV that the affected areas are relatively calm and residents have started going about their normal activities. The only concern currently is that people remain fearful due to the rumors of potential attacks because they were saying the latest attacks were also preceded by rumors, and that is why they are also still scared and calling on security agencies to ensure adequate patrol of the areas in order to prevent further attack. So this is the situation at the moment in the affected communities.
Thank you, Ado Musa. One person has been reportedly killed and a farm settlement burnt as the people of Akaibiri and Bumundi communities in Yenagua local government area of Bayelsa State clashed with Anam farmers who are engaged in commercial farming in the area. The Anam people from Anambra State have been operating farm settlements in several areas in Bayelsa State, cultivating crops for commercial purposes. Reports say the problem started on October the 6th when one Apa Ebel from Bumundi community was allegedly murdered on allegation of stealing at the farm settlement. The indigents of Akaibiri and Bumundi were reported to have launched a reprisal attack, setting the farm settlement on fire. The Bayelsa State Police Command confirmed that 2 persons are already in their custody over the incident. The Katsina command of the National Drugs Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, says it has arrested a suspected cocaine trafficker while en route to Niger Republic. The newly deployed state commander of the NDLEA, Mohammed Aminu Abubakar, disclosed this on Tuesday during his maiden interactive session with the media in Katsina. Aminu Abubakar disclosed that about 0.642 kilograms of substances suspected to be cocaine were intercepted from the suspect. The NDLEA commander, who assumed duty last Friday, said that the suspect was arrested on October the 2nd by the operatives of the command along Kano-Kankia Road. According to him, the matter is still under investigation and the suspect will be charged to court for prosecution immediately after the investigation. As the Supreme Court prepares to hear a suit from 16 governors challenging the legality of Nigeria's EFCC, citing constitutional gaps, civil society groups are rallying against this coalition. They claim the governor's actions aims to legitimize corruption and undermine public trust. The report.
16 governors recently approached Nigeria's apex court to challenge the existence of the nation's anti-corruption body, the EFCC. They asked the court to stop the agency from investigating and prosecuting them on allegations bordering public finances. However, in a swift reaction, civil society groups working to fight corruption and ensure good governance came together to push back the governor's gang-up, describing it as a deliberate attempt to legitimize corruption and undermine the commonwealth of the citizens.
The action of these 16 governors and their silent collaborators, because even the other governors have not come out openly to say that we disassociated ourselves with these 16 governors, so which means that they are doing solidarity. And if they are not doing solidarity, we challenge them, let them come out to disassociate themselves from these 16 governors that are trying to make or legitimize looting, corruption, and all sorts of irresponsible behavior, financial recklessness in their state.
Weakening or abolishing any of these anti-corruption agencies will significantly erode Nigeria's democratic gains, encourage impunity and discourage foreign investment, as investors rely on strong institutions to ensure a fair business environment.
The coalition is also worried over attempts by subnational leaders to undermine the Supreme Court judgment on local government financial autonomy, just as they condemned votes allocation and leadership selection during the recent local government elections in some states.
The financial autonomy of our local government councils is non-negotiable. It is a constitutional provision that must be respected by all tiers of government. We stand united in condemning any action by state governors that undermines this autonomy and call for strict adherence to the rule of law.
We call on the federal government, the National Assembly, and other relevant anti-corruption agencies to institute and enforce appropriate sanctions against any government official at the state level who continues to flout financial autonomy of local governments.
While they call for increased oversight in the utilization of public resources, especially at the subnational level, the coalition also wants Nigerians to join them in pushing back the dangerous narrative aimed at silencing the anti-corruption fight in the country. Shafiu Suleiman, Trust TV News, Abuja.
As we have told you earlier, the incidences of falling tanker and them engulfing in a fire has been reported in Jigawa and in several other places. It is against the tanker fire incident in Jigawa State and other states that Abdullah Ahmed takes a look at the alarming rise of oil tanker fires in Nigeria, which he reported have led to significant losses of life and property. Abdullah's report examines the root causes of these incidents, including poor infrastructure and lack of safety regulations. Take a listen.
In the last 10 years, Nigeria has been plagued by a rising number of fatal fuel tanker explosions. These tragedies have claimed hundreds of lives and destroyed countless properties. Since 2018, more than 800 people have lost their lives in over 200 tanker-related fires. The main culprits? Well, bad road conditions, outdated safety regulations, and rampant pipeline vandalism that has forced fuel companies to transport petroleum products via dangerous, poorly maintained roads. Adding to the crisis are factors like inadequate vehicle maintenance, insufficient driver training, and the absence of a comprehensive emergency response system, leaving vulnerable communities exposed to these recurrent disasters. In October of 2019, in Onitsha, Anambra State, one of the most harrowing incidents in recent memory was recorded. A tanker laden with petrol lost control, overturned, and exploded, unleashing a fire that ripped through buildings, shops, and homes. More than 30 people died in the blaze, and families were left devastated, mourning their lost loved ones and means of livelihood.
Mercy! Save Nigeria, God!
In September of 2020 in Lokoja, Kogi State, this tragic event shook the nation. A petrol tanker suffered brake failure and crashed, leading to an explosion that killed at least 23 people, including school children and a pregnant woman. The blast engulfed vehicles, pedestrians, and businesses within the vicinity, highlighting the deadly consequences of poor vehicle maintenance and inadequate road safety enforcement. Fast forward to December of 2020, along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway, a major fuel tanker explosion struck one of Nigeria's busiest highways. Several people were killed, vehicles were destroyed, and infrastructure damage caused widespread traffic chaos. The incident raised serious questions about safety on Nigeria's most critical transport routes, with experts calling for tighter regulations and better road infrastructure. And in July of 2021, in Oshogbodu, Benue State, another tragic incident was reported where a tanker explosion killed at least 12 people and obliterated homes and businesses. The fire spread rapidly through the community, leaving families with nothing but ashes and grief. 3 years ago, in November of 2021, in Alagbado area of Lagos State, in a densely populated neighborhood, a tanker fire erupted, causing panic and destruction. The explosion underscored the risk of transporting highly flammable materials through residential areas, with many calling for a re-evaluation of fuel transportation practices across Nigeria. Now, these tragedies expose deep-rooted issues in Nigeria's fuel transportation system. Poorly maintained roads, overloaded fuel tankers, and weak safety enforcement create the perfect storm for disaster. With no comprehensive safety regulations in place and infrastructure in desperate need of repair, tanker fires continue to devastate communities. Now, what needs to change? Experts emphasize the urgent need for action, stricter safety protocols for tanker maintenance, rigorous driver training programs, and better enforcement of regulations are critical steps that need to be addressed. Additionally, upgrading road infrastructure and ensuring quick, effective emergency response could prevent further tragedies. Without these reforms, Nigeria's communities remain at risk, and deadly toll of oil tanker fires will continue.
Thank you, Abdullahi. The Plateau State chapter of Miyetti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria, MACBAN, has petitioned the General Officer commanding 3rd Division of the Nigerian Army, Major General Abdul Salami Abubakar, over alleged rustling of their cattle by one Lieutenant Colonel Obi Matthias, commander of the Forward Operation Base, FOB, in Mangu, and his officers. The petition, which was copied to the National Security Advisor, the Minister of Defense, the Chief of Defense Staff, and the Chief of Army Staff, including the Chairman of the Senate Committee on Security, alleges that military personnel have been harassing, intimidating, and threatening their members. The spokesperson of the Operation Safe Haven, Major Samson Zakom, who acknowledged the receipt of the petition, is yet to issue an official statement on the allegations. Signed by the state chairman of the Miyetti Allah Group, Nuru Abdullahi, the community alleges that Lieutenant Colonel Obi and other officers under his command have been molesting and maltreating members of their on different occasions by erecting illegal roadblocks and confiscating their motorcycles, besides arresting them and detaining most of their members. The community therefore demanded an immediate investigation into the activities of soldiers in the area and recovery of their rustled cattle. The Academic Union of Polytechnics, ASUP, has issued a 15-day ultimatum to the federal government for failing to meet the demands of the union as reached during the tripartite meeting between the union, the Federal Ministry of Education, and the National Board for Technical Education, NBTE. Chairman of the Kaduna Polytechnic Chapter, Abubakar Abdullahi, stated this in Kaduna while briefing journalists. The chairman said, failure to meet their demands, the union has planned to embark on peaceful protests, media campaigns, and possible shutdown of all polytechnics across the country. According to the union, the slow progress in fulfilling the agreement by the federal government is their major concern. They demand that government show more concern to the plight of the academia in the country.
Review and reversal of all decisions taken by the government, MBT, Governing Council, those that are inconsistent with the provisions of the Federal Polytechnic Act 2019 as amended. 2, the commencement without further delay of immediate release of the old scheme of service as official documents for the polytechnic sector, and not the suspended document titled Scheme of Service for Polytechnic 2023.
The Adamawa State Government, in partnership with Mentors Innovation Hub, is launching a bold initiative to equip 1,000 persons with vital ICT skills, marking a key step towards advancing digital inclusion. The program targets women, youths, and people with disabilities, providing them with comprehensive training in digital and entrepreneurial skills to help them succeed in today's digital economy. Funded by the World Bank, the project aims to equip participants with the tools and knowledge needed for employability and business growth, fostering self-reliance, This initiative supports the state government's vision of building a digitally inclusive society where everyone can leverage the benefits of technology. At a media briefing in Yola, stakeholders highlighted the project's potential to transform Adamawa State. By investing in digital literacy, the government is creating a foundation for economic growth, innovation, and social progress.
Basically, it's about training 1,000 trainees in Adamawa State, youth, women, and people living with disability. And we are focusing on getting minimum of 60% women for this training, 40% male, and 30% from the 100% people living with disability.
We are having 8 tracks of courses that we are going to be taking through, which some of them are around software development. We are also having on the content creation and also productivity tool for people that are working with government and private sectors, which is for them to be able to leverage on and upscale their small-scale businesses.
They are complementing what the government have been doing, particularly Paweka are doing a remarkable job in this aspect. But you know, government can never be all, and we can never be everywhere, but we need partners that will come and be complementing the effort of the present government of the day by doing this remarkable job.
Some residents of Bauchi State say they will rather spend more on sachet and bottled water to protect their health rather than resorting to drinking untreated water from their taps. Reacting to the recent increase in the price of sachet and bottled water amidst the high cost of essential commodities, the residents said no matter the cost, sachet and bottled water remains preferable for drinking following their treatments. Trust TV's Adamu Imam completes the story.
According to some of the residents in Bauchi metropolis, saying the sachet and bottled water for drinking is more expensive, as a bag of sachet water, which was sold for 130 in the state, is now sold for between 250 and 300 naira, depending on the location and other market forces. They say despite the increase, they prefer to spend more as public water from has over time proven not to be hygienic enough for drinking.
Because this one is better than that one. That's why we used to buy this one. It's better than this one. It's better than that water. Because sometimes if you carry cup to go and get fresh water, you will see that there is some balls inside the water from the tap. And this one you will not see anything inside. It's very clean, very fantastic.
Honestly, they increased the price of sachet and bottled water due to the high cost of things in the country, especially the price of petrol. Now, bottled water is sold for 250 naira, while a sachet of water is now 30 naira in some places. A water sanitation and hygiene expert, Magaj Bardi, explained that drinking water directly from the tap is unhealthy and urged residents to consider the implications on their health when deciding on the kind of water they drink on a daily basis.
This has a negative impact on health, education, and well-being, and has even caused a drastic increment in the rate of advancement of the spread of infectious diseases like cholera, issues around typhoid, which we have seen on a practical note in the health facilities and the household. So I am talking from the angle of a specialist in water sanitation and hygiene to call on the government to be able to control the prices of water consumables in the market for the common man to be able to afford and have access to safe drinking water.
Those who insist on buying sachet water despite its rising cost say they are considering the health hazards of using untreated water like the one that comes directly from the tap. Hence, they resolve to stay with sachet water. Meanwhile, the Association of Table Water Producers in the state is attributing the surge in the price of sachet or bottled water to the rising cost of production. Adam Imam, Trust TV News, Bauchi.
As the 2024 harvest season commences in many parts of the country, most farmers are packaging their produce and transporting them back to silos at homes for later sales and family consumption. However, many farmers in Gombe State have been selling their produce direct from the farms in order to settle debts incurred as a result of purchases of farm inputs and other domestic issues. This action, according to stakeholders, will ignite a wave of food inflation across the country. They therefore advise that farmers should be cautious. Here is the report.
In recent weeks, there are reports of massive sales of farm produce in farms across Gombe State, which is contrary to the tradition of transporting and storing the newly harvested commodities by the farmers during harvesting season. According to some farmers, they are selling their produce directly from the farms to settle dozens of debt, mostly related to farm input and domestic issues. As farmers, we are selling our farm produce now because most of us did not get agricultural input on time, and we also did not have a stable rainy season this year. A lot of farmers planted seed twice or 3 times this season alone because we experienced a short-term drought in our local government area. So most of the inputs were on credit. Therefore, we are selling them to settle the initial debt. There is indeed a problem if this trend continues because it will cause food inflation. So I urge my fellow farmers to desist from it or to at least do it wisely. The stakeholders, on the other hand, acknowledge that with the recent hardship and inflation, farmers have a concrete reason to sell their commodities right from the farm. They, however, said they are doing their best to brief farmers on the effect of the trend.
You don't know how much he mobilized the money going back to the farm since from the land preparation and buying the materials, inputs and chemicals and other things like that. So he don't have any option rather than to sell it out and to settle the debt or the credit that he collected from any organization or individual. There is so many implications into that. That's why we are urging and we are advising our team smallholder farmers not to do so. Because of what? Because of by selling your produce at a time, at the end of the day, you will now start looking for it after having a lot of issues or problems.
They should hold their cough for a time being. But you know the situation is very difficult. Farmer must sell it and buy what they want to buy. But we are doing our best, of course, we are doing our best to mobilize and sensitize our farmers to maintain their products after harvest.
Statistics show that with 44.09%, Gombe was the second state with the highest food inflation rate in Nigeria for the month of September, a development attributed to the recent hike in agricultural input and cost of transportation across the country. From Gombe, Hassan Koli reporting for Trust TV.
Business owners in Jos to cry falling patronage, blame economic policies. We have more news when we return. Do stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is News Hour on Trust TV. Let's take a look at our top stories again. Tragedy strikes as 107 persons die in Jigawa tanker explosion. And we told you that 5 people were killed in a latest plateau attack. Moving on to other stories, the Nigerian Senate is grieving the death of more than 100 persons who died after an overturned trailer laden with fuel ignited while residents were scooping the spilled petrol in Dutse, the Jigawa state capital. The Senate equally called on the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and the National Emergency Management Agency to immediately respond to the emergency situation. Trust TV's National Assembly correspondent Sagir Ibrahim brings details of these and more from Wednesday's Senate plenary.
Coming under Order 41 of the Senate Rulebook on matters of urgent national importance, Senator Hussaini Babangida, representing Jigawa Northwest, announced the unfortunate tanker explosion which happened at Majia Ward in Taura Local Government, Jigawa Northwest. He called for public enlightenment and sensitization on the dangers of scooping fuel from tankers involved in accidents as one of the measures to prevent future occurrence.
The explosion resulted in the death of about 100 people, whose bodies were burnt beyond recognition, leaving about 300 people with varying degrees of burns. Public enlightenment and sensitization on the dangers of indulging in the dangerous act of scooping fuel from tankers whenever there is a tanker accident should be encouraged as part of measures to forestall reoccurrence of these unfortunate incidents.
Our people mostly are in rural areas and they are not aware of the danger of approaching tankers that are falling and the danger of scooping fuel from these tankers. And that is why, in partial ignorance, they engage in this activity that leads to loss of lives. Finally, Mr. President, I want to say that the Senate should take this matter of providing succor for those who have been affected with all seriousness.
In his own remark, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, who commiserated with the senator, the state government, and those affected, cautioned Nigerians on the dangers of fuel siphoning, advising them to desist from such behaviors.
This has happened in Lagos, it has happened in Ikeja, it has happened in my community in Akwa Ibom State before, and a lot of the bonds were first-class bonds. I don't think we need too much debate, but the prayers will have to be more loaded. Is it the view of the Senate that we proceed to the prayers?
Also, the Senate President has reacted to a publication's claim that there is a ploy to instigate his removal after the confirmation of 18 persons as federal commissioners in the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission. The Senate President took time to react to the publication making the rounds about an alleged ploy to remove him as leader of the Senate. He described it as a cheap attempt by social media bloggers to rake in views on YouTube and earn from their channels, and also fake news originating from individuals hired to shake up the polity. He then directed the Senate Committee on Special Duties to investigate the matter and report back in 24 hours.
It's part of what we pass through on a daily basis. It's either they use AI to inject something to turn it around in order to drive traffic. I understand that they are being paid by YouTube if they have a lot of traffic. So whoever brought out this fake news must be getting a lot of payment because of the traffic going on. But I hope the public is aware that this is total fake news and that the chamber is very stable and the issue of impeachment does not come in. So, Kaka, please investigate and report back to us as soon as practicable.
As the Senate President pleases, I will do the needful and report back, sir.
All right.
Thank you.
The publication had also alleged that operatives of the Department of State Services, the DSS, had surrounded the National Assembly complex in an attempt to prevent the said impeachment. From the National Assembly, Sagir Ibrahim, Trust TV News, Abuja.
Still on the Senate has confirmed the appointment of 21 federal commissioners of the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation and Fiscal Commission. Their confirmation follows the submission and consideration of the report by Chairman of the Joint Committees on National Planning and Economic Affairs and Finance, Senator Abdullahi Abubakar, during plenary on Wednesday. In his remarks, the President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, urged the new commissioners to give their best to the job. He, however, asked them to be good ambassadors of their states and the country.
The nomination of Honorable Adamu Fanda, representing Kano State, is hereby confirmed as a federal commissioner in the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission, RAMFAC. Distinguished colleagues, will the Senate confirm the nomination of Professor Olusegun Adekunle Wright, representing Lagos State, for appointment as the Federal Commissioner in the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission? Those in favor say aye. Those against say nay. The ayes have it. The nomination of Professor Olusegun Adekunle Wright, representing Lagos State, is hereby confirmed as Federal Commissioner in the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission.
Still at the National Assembly, the House of Representatives has urged the federal government to reverse the recent petrol price hike, citing the increased hardship on Nigerians. The House also called for measures to stabilize petrol and cooking gas prices, such as temporary reliefs, tax reductions, or subsidies for low-income households. In a motion sponsored by 101 members, the House asked the Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation Limited and other agencies to expedite refinery repairs and boost local refining to reduce reliance on imported fuel. They also urged the Central Bank of Nigeria to implement policies that will reduce the inflationary effects of fuel price hikes on essential goods. The government was also advised to encourage to explore alternative energy sources and promote renewable energy to reduce dependence on petrol and gas. State governments were also advised to alleviate the financial burden by waiving taxes on transportation and goods affected by fuel costs.
Mindful that the rising cost of petrol and cooking gas poses significant threat to livelihood of millions of Nigerians, and unchecked inflation pressure caused by increased prices can lead to social unrest, increased poverty rate, and negative long-term economic effects.
That laws are made for man, not man for law. Again, for every law, there is the letter of the law and the spirit of the law. I'm saying this because of the argument of PIA. Yes, PIA has provided for deregulation, but what is the spirit behind PIA? Is it the same spirit that Nigerians are feeling today? Was that the reason why we enacted PIA? No. The answer is clear that it is no. And therefore, in implementing every law, we must look at the spirit behind it.
Most of the constituencies, people are suffering because of this increase. Let me also use the opportunity, Mr. Speaker, to borrow a word of our president. When he spoke then, he said, let the government allow the poor to breathe. Today, we are not only calling for government to allow the poor to breathe, we are calling of government not to remove the cylinder that the poor are already living under oxygen. If you remove the cylinder, we are not talking about breath. We are talking about taking people's life.
I want us to pressurize on the government, because not all countries that produces petroleum are in OPEC. We need to review our OPEC policy. We mustn't be in OPEC, because the only thing that will solve this problem of petroleum increase is to use what we have to solve our problem.
Still at the House of Representatives, members criticized the presidency for violating the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007 by failing to present the Medium-Term Expenditure Framework (MTEF) and the Fiscal Policy Paper (FSP) to the National Assembly on time. This breach involves a delay beyond the 4 months before the end of the fiscal year, they argued. These arguments were presented through a motion of public importance sponsored by Representative Clement Jimbo. Jimbo emphasized that the Fiscal Responsibility Act seeks to ensure prudent management of national resources, economic stability, and greater transparency in fiscal operations. It also mandates the federal government to submit an MTEF for the next 3 financial years to the National Assembly within the required time frame. The House of Representatives therefore expressed concern that this delay undermines its ability to perform its constitutional duties, as outlined in Sections 88 and 89 of the 1999 Constitution and Sections 30 sub 1 of the Fiscal Responsibility Act. They warned that the executive's non-compliance hampers the legislative process and the oversight role of the National Assembly.
Section 88(1) stipulates that, subject to other provisions of the 1999 Constitution, each house of the National Assembly shall have the power, by passing resolution, to direct or cause to be directed an investigation into any matter or thing with respect to which it has power to make laws, and into the conduct of affairs of any person, authority, ministry, of government, department charged or intended to be charged with the duty or responsibility for executing, administrating laws enacted by the National Assembly.
The last budget, like we rightly noted, we were almost rushed. In fact, we were rushed into concluding that budget. And that is what we want to avoid happening again this year. And we can also say that the Parliament perhaps will no longer want to tolerate that situation where the budget, which is a very important, in fact, the most important law that will be passed by this assembly, as it has to do with the Nigerian nation.
Mr. Speaker, we have seen that this is one of the ways the MDAs are actually shortchanging this country by not allowing us do our job. If we need 4 months to go over the budget proposal, 4 months is 4 months, Mr. Speaker. We don't want them to drag us to a month or less than a month to get our job done.
The annual budget of FEMA is a mega sum of about 25 billion to 50 billion naira within the last 2 years, which is about 10% of the required amounts. Mr. Speaker, sir, aware that the Federal Ministry of Works in the 2024 budget have about 1 trillion naira, thus they need to allocate about 20% of Ministry of Works budget to FEMA in 2025 budget estimates.
Medium and small-scale business owners in Jos, the Plateau-scale capital, are lamenting the decline in businesses due to the current economic policies in the country. The business owners argue that prices of goods and services are increasing on a daily basis in the country following the removal of fuel subsidy by President Bola Tinubu, with now millions of Nigerians facing serious economic hardships. Adam Musa has more on that story.
Nigeria is an import-dependent economy. Following the twin policies of fuel subsidy removal and the devaluation of Naira, the cost of both locally produced and imported goods have increased due to high tariffs. This development has significantly impacted businesses' overhead and operational expenditures nationwide.
And there's no market moving like before, because before you are going to take your transportation to reach the markets to get what you have to get. And secondly, before you to think of that, you are going to think like the money I'm going to buy is not even enough that the one I'm going to use for the transportation. So you now cancel yourself to not go to the market.
To the way things are now, the prices are higher. You sell things of 1,000. When you went to buy it, you buy it more than that 1,000. So you have to increase your prices so that it will blend with how the economy is.
Honestly, the situation we find ourselves is challenging, especially we, the small-scale business owners. The price at which you buy goods from dealers is increasing every day. That is why we are not enjoying the business. Bello Ismail is a lecturer at the Department of Economics at the Sa'adu Zungur University, Bauchi. He highlighted some of the factors that are responsible for the decline in business transactions in the country.
These businesses that are falling, that are closing up, it is because of the high cost of production. When they produce little small goods, they will discover that they cannot sustain their operations. In the sense that the electricity or the fuel or whatever means of powering their enterprises, the cost is doubling. When they look at when the operational cost, like even in papers, and renting, the cost of renting, what a staff can eat in a day, it is almost equivalent to what he can earn in a day. So it is giving the enterprises zero. You spend 100 naira, you are earning 100 naira or less. You are going to become indebted.
The lecturer suggested ways government can mitigate the current economic crisis in the country.
If government want to revive the economy, the government should provide a policy whereby they will consider transportation costs. They will know how to subsidize this by substituting the method of transport now, maybe introducing train or changing from these petrol-based vehicles to CNG. And also, secondly, it will provide a means whereby it can stabilize the currency. Because there is no way you will buy something 1 million naira, you sell it 1,200,000 naira. By the time you are selling it, when you go back to the same market, you are going to buy it higher than how much you sell it at the beginning.
Economist experts say if government does not review some policies, 80% of medium and small-scale enterprises may close down. Ado Musa, Trust TV News, Jos.
Let's now join Yusuf Akogun for business.
Time for some business stories. The Manufacturers Association of Nigeria MAN has reiterated calls for the downward review of electricity tariff as approved by NEC for the discos, which resulted in about 250% increase in tariffs. According to MAN, no manufacturers can survive such a huge increase. Director General of MAN, Sego Ajayi Kadri, stated this in an interactive session in Lagos on Tuesday. He asked that the government extend the same consideration granted to universities and hospitals to manufacturers. MAN took NEC and the discos to court over the matter, but the case was struck out by the Federal High Courts last week for abuse of court processes. Kenya shillings has been rated as the best performing currency in sub-Saharan Africa. According to the World Bank, the East Africa currency gained 21% year-to-date by end of August 2024. The multilateral lender, in its latest Africa's Pulse report, disclosed that tighter financial conditions and a strong dollar as well as foreign exchange market reforms resulted in weakening of most currencies in sub-Saharan Africa in 2023. It noted that the Angolan kwaza, Malawian kwacha, Nigerian naira, South Sudan pound, and Zambian kwacha were the worst performing currencies in the region in 2023. NGS closed Wednesday's trading in red due to profit taking in most medium cap equities. Leading the losers today is custodian insurance down 8.98% to close at 11 naira and 65 kobo per share. Okomo Oil also down 6.86% to close at 338 naira and 10 kobo per share. Of course, Conho PLC also down 6.62% to close at 1 naira and 41 kobo per share. Of course, this has pushed the market downward by 0.25%. The volume of trade there 243.7 million shares. The value at 8.76 billion naira in a list of 7,671 lead exchanges among investors this Wednesday. Of course, looking at the top trading equities by volume, Fidelity Bank Nigeria PLC lead the table 38.05 million shares. It traded UBA 28.72 million shares. Of course, JITCO traded 16.72 million volume of shares at the close of business this Wednesday. Some equities recorded gains at the close of business as well. Deep Cap leader table there 10% is gained to close at 1 naira and 32 kobo per share. The UACN also gained 9.90% to close at 21 naira and 65 kobo per share as well. Dangote Sugar recorded gains today 9.69% to close at 35 naira and 10 kobo per share day. And that's the highlight of stock trading as it went down this Wednesday on the floor of NGS. Let's see the global stock market and exchange rate data for today. Oil price steady on Wednesday, supported by OPEC Plus cuts and uncertainty over what may happen next in the Middle East conflict, although an outlook for ample supply next year added downward pressure. At the London market, Brent crude sells for $74 per barrel. For the per basket, dealers offer $77 per barrel. And that's business. I am Yusuf Akogun.
From the foreign scene, nearly 3 million people have fled Sudan after 18 months of war. In a still growing exodus, the UN warns that the 25,000 fleeing neighboring Chad in the first week of October alone. Mamadou Dian Balde, the United Nations Sudan Regional Refugee Coordinator, said the 3 million mark will likely be crossed in the next 2 to 3 weeks. He warns that the figure is approaching 3 million is a disaster, directly linked to the increasing brutality of the conflict. He argues that in an interview, he stated this in an interview on Tuesday during his visit to Geneva. War has ravaged since April 2023 between the Sudanese army under the country's de facto ruler Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitary rapid support forces led by al-Burhan's deputy Mohammed Hamdan Daglo. Both sides have been accused of war crimes, including targeting civilians and blocking humanitarian aid. The conflict has left tens of thousands dead and some 26 million people facing severe food insecurity, with famine declared in the Zamzam displacement camp in Sudan's western Darfur region. Some 11.3 million people have been forced to flee, including nearly 2.95 million who fled across the country's borders, according to the latest figures from the UN Refugee Agency, the UNHCR. We now join Emmanuel Fashemi for Sports News.
Five games were decided on Wednesday, March 7 of the Nigerian Premier Football League. Kano Pillars, who lost in an away game last weekend, put the defeat behind, confronting Enugu Rangers, another team that suffered the same fate at their home ground in Enugu State. Pillars went ahead in the 15th minute when Rabi Ali converted from the penalty spot. They doubled the lead in the 28th minute through Zukifilu Rabiu before Rabi Ali added a second again from the spot to score a brace and make it 3-0. The game was put far beyond the reach of Rangers as Ahmed Musa hammered in the fourth goal, making it 4-0 in the first minute of the added time. Rangers began a fight back in the opening minutes of the second half as Isaac Xavier pulled a goal back in the 47th minute. 12 minutes later, he scored a second goal to reduce the tally to 4-2. Emmanuel Silas Nerot made the scoreline more respectable for Rangers when he scored a third goal in the added minutes. The defending champions Enugu Rangers has now lost 3 games since the start of the new season out of 7 games played so far. In the other fixtures, Lobby Stars played a 2-2 draw with Economic Warriors, with Enyimba sharing points with Niger Tornadoes after playing a 1-1 draw. While Kwara United trashed Sunshine Stars 3-0 and Nasarawa United beat Abia Warriors 3-0. Games continues on Thursday across the various match venues of the country. And that is sports. I am Emmanuel Fashemi.
That concludes this edition of News Hour on Trust TV. Don't forget to follow us across all our media platforms and join our YouTube live stream for more news, programs, and documentary. I'm Muhammad Kuda Uwakar. Thank you for watching.